start. Well, okay, I'll be careful what I say now that we're on tape. Let's see. Okay, here we go again. Let's hope I stick through. So the first item on I'm calling the meeting to order. Everyone knows each other, so take your bows if you choose to. Approval of the minutes of November 8th. Oh, I didn't change the number. Just in case you're afraid I messed up, which I did. Okay. Any comment on the minutes?
Yes, I wasn't there. Marty?
The minutes, I have you down as present.
Yes.
No, I shouldn't. I changed the wrong thing. That's
Okay.
the problem.
Okay, no problem. I mean, I don't think it's
Because-
earth shattering. I just want to make you aware.
In the actual minutes, there were 2 people absent. 3 people absent. Kelly was out, whatever it is, absent. Okay, so the minutes are corrected by taking you out of here.
Well, don't take Lisa out. There we go. Voila.
Voila. Okay. Okay, minutes as corrected. Anyone opposed? Then the next item is unanimous. Next item is Chair's report. And I have a few things to bring to your attention. As you're aware, at the end of the public meeting last month, we just received from the Committee on Open Government a letter from the, she's not commissioner, I forget what her title is. But these three items were brought to our attention as being amendments to the open meetings law. The first one, the 24-hour public notice of resolutions. I want to come back to that. A 2-week time limit for distribution of minutes for all committees and the board, and then 1 week after an executive session. Those are limited minutes because it was an executive session. And then extension of use of video conferencing. And that was because the committee, and I'm a little confused on this. You know, the old system was if we were going to video conference under the old law before the, what do you call it, the amendment, we had to announce everybody's home or wherever they were if they were going to be calling in via video. And then any member of the public had the right to come to your home and sit in your living room to watch and observe your participation, which is one of the reasons we didn't do it. But then under the pandemic, Governor Cuomo allowed us to have Zoom meetings, and that ran out. And then we were told that Jeff was one of the people or the prime sponsor of extending that after it expired. And so we knew that by January 15th, 2022, we could no longer use that system. And all of a sudden comes this email, this letter that we got from COG, which says video conferencing is now extended. And I made the comment at the last meeting that didn't seem to have a sunshine clause. But I will tell you right now, and I copied it here under item F, the latest emendation of open meetings law is on the COG website. And I took this last line here, section 2, The act shall take effect immediately, so far so good, and expire and deemed repealed as of January 15, 2022, which means, if I read this correctly, open meetings law ceases to exist on January 16th. Now, we know that's not going to happen. I also contacted COG with 2 questions. This was my second question. I got an answer to my first. I did not get an answer to my second. So I don't know how valid this is, but this is exactly what it says on the website. The law is repealed effective January 15th. Now let's go back to this whole concept of resolutions being on that the public be notified of any resolution coming up within with at least 24 hours public notice. Now, as you recall the word, and because that was one of the questions I asked COG previously, as long as it's practicable of the word. Well, I don't know what that means. I don't know that if you intend to bring up a resolution and you have it written and published, does that mean that the public has no opportunity for input? That's not what we want it to mean. So therefore, the resolution being brought up cannot be the final copy. So my suggestion, again, practicable, if you write on the agenda, and I think I've said this to community board chairpersons, if you write in your agenda, we're going to discuss X, Y, Z, then in effect, you've notified the public that you'll be talking about something. And if the resolution comes from the floor, which it probably should, then you've covered your base. The second question, which was brought up by Dan a couple of months ago, is the question of, does the resolution as it came before the community, came before a committee, have to be the resolution that ends up on the floor of the community board? And the answer basically is not necessarily. So long as the committee has voted on its intent, they want X, Y, Z to happen, and then somebody else does wordsmanship to flesh out the resolution, then so long as that's, the committee has agreed to that happening, then that resolution can go forward. Issue came up recently where a chair decided that that person, chair, wanted to add a number of whereases that were not part of the resolution passed by the committee. The committee only voted, excuse me, on therefore be it resolved, did not discuss whereases at all. Can that resolution go forward? Basically, the answer would be yes. So long as it was true to what the committee intended. Of course, if it went before the community board and the members of the committee said that's not what we had in mind, then that resolution needs to be withdrawn. So I just laid that out. Again, if you read this week's Riverdale Press, they don't seem to be too happy with the fact that we're still using Zoom. And their headline basically was, when is Community Board 8 going to come back and meet in public? As far as I know, Hinman enjoys listening to the tapes of the day after. So he doesn't seem to be too concerned, but his front page story expressed some concern. As far as I'm concerned, when the pandemic hit and I went to the hospital and came back out, I would never have been able to attend any community board meetings. But like this with Zoom, I didn't miss any. So I'm still in favor of Zoom. I don't know how you feel, but right now it's in the hands of the governor or the legislature to decide whether or not OML gets another life or ends on January 15th. Any questions so far? I attended via Zoom a conference on November 18th where the discussion, COG led the conference. And I see you raise your hand, Camelia. I'll get back to you in a second. COG conducted a session on FOIL. I found it somewhat painful. I took screenshots, but for some reason, most of my shots came out blurry. Did not understand that. I didn't move my computer, so I don't know why it's blurry. I found it interesting but painful. Just note that on Florence, take this. Oh, my phone's in the bedroom. But they hung up. COG is holding a conference on Thursday. If anyone is interested, they'll be discussing the open meetings law. I will be in attendance. It's at 10 or 10:30 in the morning. And I'll bring you back information if anything new comes up that I was not aware of and I think I should be sharing. And finally, in terms of my report, is there was a question that came up somewhat tangentially. I picked it up, some email that was going back and forth. I don't want to give out specifics, but some of you, having attended the last board meeting, will probably know what I'm talking about. There was a member of the community who wanted to speak, but wanted to remain anonymous. Two people in the viewing room. Dan wants to come in and Omar wants to come in. Okay. When Dan comes in, I'll make him co-host.
Hey, guys. How are you?
All right. So they want to remain anonymous. So the question raised is whether or not a speaker, not a member of the board, a speaker can remain anonymous. I contacted COG. I couldn't find anything. They got back to me with 4 advisory opinions. I only had to read one of them, which says, yes, a speaker who wishes to be anonymous can remain anonymous. I think the question became somewhat moot because too much information was given. So anyone who is awake had to know what we were talking about. So that whole inquiry question, I say, became moot because there was no longer any sense of anonymity either to the subject. Well, the person was still anonymous, but the subject was now widely known, and who knows what will happen after that. I will call on you, Camelia. All right. Go ahead, Camelia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Marty. Just wanted to clarify because I'm not sure I understood what you said with respect with a 24-hour public notice. Are you saying, did you just say that committee chairs were already instructed and informed about this law and they will sort of do their best to have resolutions ready? And also further, if the office was instructed to post this resolution publicly, of course, with the exception of the sort of, if it's practicable, right? Like if a committee has a meeting the day before a full board meeting, probably they will not be ready to have 5 resolutions, whatever. But on a general level, were committee chairs instructed to this effect, to be prepared to have their resolutions adopted in committee ready 24 hours in advance? Thank you.
Yes, they were told. The question I raise is whether or not that makes any sense. If you have a printed resolution to distribute, when there's not been discussion and the community hasn't had a chance for input, then strikes me the resolution is without merit. So as far as I'm concerned, as practicable, don't know what that word means, as if practicable, the question then becomes, if you put on your agenda, we will be discussing the following, as I will be doing tonight. There are certain items that are coming up that I posted before. So anyone who has a interest in what's coming up would have known this is what I plan to discuss. But the agenda alone could have said, we're going to talk about something. And then if you have a concern about something, then you ought to tune in. But I can fully understand. I mean, I will come back to the whole issue of last week's, what do you call it, land use meeting. Even though we have gotten Chuck to put stuff out for the board to look at in terms of resolutions coming up, the fact is it's without community input. And if you followed what took place with the resolution that was passed concerning the homeless shelter, it came out of committee. Chuck wrote it up. It went before the executive committee where it got torn apart, and it went back to, it was entirely rewritten before it got to, I mean, the intent was approved by the committee, so it didn't come out of space. But the whereases bothered a lot of people. And so that resolution was totally rewritten. So I don't know where practicable comes into this question. So I answer your question with more questions. If you're going to put down that the committee will be talking about the homeless shelter on Broadway, then anyone with interest should tune in without a resolution being actually written. In our case, if we have a resolution written tonight, tomorrow is the board meeting. There is no chance, if it's important enough, for me to have it 24 hours to publicize it. In addition, I would more than likely want to put it before the executive committee before it went to the board. So the 24-hour issue is not important to me at the moment. We'll see later on in the meeting. But again, I think they created something here with a loophole that is so wide that this becomes almost irrelevant, in my view. Having said that, again, I ask if there are any questions. If not, let's move on to the first item of content.
Marty,
Yes,
I'm going to have that similar problem in terms of my meeting because we're having a presentation of the SCA for the site selection of the new school. Some said that there should be a resolution. I asked Kira, I didn't put anything on the agenda that there was going to be a resolution. I don't plan on doing it prematurely because I don't know how the committee is going to feel. So that would be a last minute thing. They have a due date of January 3rd. There's no executive or general meeting where I can present the resolution. So I'm kind of in limbo.
I think you ought to raise that at the community board meeting.
But how does that fit in with the rules of OML?
Well, I think you ought to get direction. It was suggested at the land use meeting appropriately that they should come before the education committee and you should ponder it. But the problem you have now with the question of practicability, I want to get that right, practicability, is that you have a fixed date by which you need to respond, or we need to respond. And so, again, I would raise that at the board meeting to see if they will not give you license to come up with something at the education committee that the board will stand behind you on.
Okay.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
your issue certainly is that if you don't do anything, then the board gets locked out of a vote, out of a voice.
Right.
And there's no way, I mean, we've done that in the past with respect to the old land use committee, which was given the authority over the summer to act on behalf of the board. Certainly you say to the general member, the board, at the board meeting, your meeting is, everyone is invited to participate particularly respect to this presentation, and you'd like to hear their voices. Otherwise, you'd like the authority to speak on behalf of the board when the committee comes up with a resolution. That's my opinion on it.
Okay,
So just Marty, adding to this,
Yes, Dan?
should you as land use, well, I guess Sylvia, I guess, would have to make a motion at the full board to get authority to do a resolution on behalf of the board?
That's a good idea. In addition, that should be 24 hours in advance.
I mean, that's something that you could plan for, Sylvia. Well, actually, no, the meeting's tomorrow. Sorry.
yeah, the meeting is tomorrow.
Well, it wasn't practicable.
And my
but
meeting
you-
isn't until the 22nd, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really jive.
No, but your resolution ought to request, and if I have time tonight or tomorrow morning, I can help you draft something. But your resolution is to request the authority to speak on behalf of the board after a full presentation before your committee.
I can do that. Okay. And then send it off after my meeting.
And then send that resolution to tomorrow so that it can be discussed at the community board meeting for a vote to authorize you to speak on behalf.
Right,
the
and
whole
if it
board.
is authorized, then I can send it after my meeting.
That's the theory, yes.
Okay,
Or Marty, is there any, and I missed this part of SCA's presentation. And again, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll deal with it at the board. I guess we'll deal with it at the board tomorrow. Yeah, yeah. But January
You've got-
3rd was the
you've got
date that
two
they gave us?
issues.
that's
You've
the
got
date.
two issues.
Wow.
There were
Wow.
two issues which I fully don't understand. The
Yep.
first one I do, the second I don't. The first one is that there's overcrowding in the district and the need for more seats. What is it, 600 seats, Sylvia?
696.
696. So the need for seats is there. There was some question that came up, which I'm sure will come up again at the Education Committee, is whether or not elementary school is what is needed. Maybe it's a middle school that's needed. One thing that SCA cannot answer, and they said they couldn't answer it, is they cannot tell us what the catchment area will be because they have no authority over that. The board has.
That's EOE. Mhm.
The second thing that came up is apparently there's a housing development, housing project, whatever you want to call it, that will be coming up right there. That the entire property that the church owned is not being used by BOE. So
Right,
there will be additional, by definition, there will be additional student population that will need the school, regardless of what the age range will be, junior high school or elementary school, and how that impacts. It's important to know because if there is no school, the other schools will be impacted.
Right.
So these are the issues that will come up at that meeting. Next
okay,
Tuesday, I believe.
right.
Okay, I want to make sure I get my dates right again.
The
'cause date was
22nd.
shifted. Okay,
Definitely the 22nd.
definitely the 22nd. Okay, so let's move on.
Okay, thank you.
We discussed last month, and I said I'd go back and do a better job at it. Hopefully I have. Article 4 of and the issue here is filling midterm vacancies. If you recall, last month, we had a visitor from a newspaper, I forget the name of the paper, who spoke to me afterwards. I spent with her a great deal of time with her. And she needed a full education about community boards in general. She thought that this whole entire project discussion meant that if someone resigned or died or was terminated from the board or whatever, it was the borough president who would fill that vacancy. It took me a while to disabuse her of that. At any rate, what I've underlined, the red-faced here, excuse me, the two sentences of importance, section 3 and section 4, concerning how vacancies are filled. So in section 3, the election to fill any vacancy take place upon written notice at the second regular meeting following the creation of the vacancy. That's what it says now. Section 4, what it says now, such resignation shall take effect at, let me move my thing here, at the time specified therein, or if no time specified upon the date of submission thereof, but in no event any later than 30 days after. A resignation need not be accepted to become effective. So the question here is, the date you are aware that there is a resignation or death or whatever, the clock starts ticking. Unless the person says, I resign effective December 31st. Then there is no vacancy until December 31st. However, there's nothing in here about withdrawing it, and there's nothing in here about having to accept it. It's a done deal. Once they say, I plan to resign, the plan is done. Having said all of that, our conversation was to change the ethical guidance manual. Now, what I have here in blue is what I posted. This is before the 24 hours in advance, with the exception that I added the items that are underlined are things I've added since. So for the sake of convenience, I'll read it, although I'm not a good public reader. When a vacancy arises midterm for an officer or committee chair, the office will advise the full board, but in no event any later than 30 days of the effective date of the vacancy. I missed something there. And invite self-nominations. Board members will then have a 10 working day window to self-nominate before the full board is notified of which board members have expressed interest. The election for the successor must take place at the second full board meeting following the effective date of the vacancy. Nominations have been made from the floor. So I open this up for discussion.
Marty,
Go ahead.
I need some help with your editing. I'm confused as hell. You've got gray italics, then you got red italics, then you got blue bold, and then you've got underscoring. And now I'm confused as hell as to what is, what was, what should go in, what is in question.
Section
I'm
3,
lost.
let me explain. Section 3, Section 4 exist. The red is only to highlight its content. That's in our
Highlight,
bylaws.
okay.
What I
Okay.
did in blue, and word new is right there. What I did in blue is my recommendation for adding to the ethical guidance manual specifically for this purpose,
And the underscore in italics?
is because I published all of the blue I published before this meeting. You had it in your hand. I have added for this meeting the things I underlined.
Okay, the new.
The new, okay.
Okay.
So Marty, so the new language, that is in addition to section 4?
No. Section 3, Section 4 are bylaws. Article 5 of our bylaws. The new is to go into the ethical guidance manual.
Okay.
Marty, does this mean that the office can wait 29 days before informed of the effective date to notify the full board of a resignation?
I
Seems-
try to take this language directly from Section 4 of the bylaws. But no event any later than 30 days thereafter. I took exactly the same language.
Okay.
I mean, it came from here.
Okay.
What I didn't do last month entirely is I didn't reference where the information already existed so that I copied exactly the same language.
Shall be, shall take place by written notice. In a second.
So Marty, couple of questions here.
Go ahead.
So when a vacancy arises midterm for an officer committee chair, the office will advise the full board. It seems like there's something missing there. But it will advise the full board, but in no event any later than 30 days of the effective date of the vacancy. Do we mean the office will advise the full board not later than 30 days following the effective date of the vacancy?
What we want to happen is as soon as they know, they should notify the board.
Okay, then
But the
then we need-
bylaws say that there's a 30-day window that's theoretically available.
Where is the? Shall take.
So the bylaws are silent as to when the notice must go from the board to from the office to the board. Right?
Much
And you're
Such-
you're clarifying it in this language.
Such resignation shall take effect at the time specified.
Yeah, but
And if
that's
there's
the
no
that's the
time be
effective date.
specified,
That's the effective date, not the date of
Yeah.
notice.
So I think section 4 is basically just saying that you can't put an effective date out greater than 30 days.
correct.
I agree, Dan. Yep.
And that's a little bit different than what we're working with the new language, or at least the way I'm reading it. It appears that, the board office can hold on to that notice for a bit.
You're saying under the current bylaws,
No, under the current bylaws, I get it. They're saying if you're going to put out a resignation, it can't be greater than 30 days out.
the effective date can't
The
be
effective
greater-
date,
right.
absolutely correct. We're on the same page, but on the new language, the proposed language, I read that to say that when a vacancy arises, the office will advise the board no later than 30 days.
So I think, Marty, I think maybe what we mean here is when a vacancy arises midterm for an officer or committee chair, the office will advise the board, we should need something like there, as soon as reasonably practicable or something like that, but in no event later than 30 days following the effective date of the vacancy, something like
Well,
that.
I would get rid of the 30 days there just because I don't think we need it.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right. That's
Because we're talking about
Yep.
notice.
You're right. This is not, it's a different issue. I agree with that, Dan. So Marty, what about that? Does that we just go with the as soon as is reasonably practicable or whatever legalism we want
Uh,
to.
And then take this out.
I think so. I think Dan's right that my suggestion, I think I'd go with Dan on that.
So when a vacancy arises midterm for an officer or committee chair, the office will advise the full board as soon as is practicable and invite self-nominations.
Now, one question about that, Marty. When we say self-nominations, I mean, can there be nominations that, can other people nominate? Does it have to be a self-nomination? Can I nominate Sylvia or Lisa or Dan, not myself?
I just got rid of self.
Okay,
Of course, the question becomes, and that's not the problem at the moment, is how do you know that Sylvia or whoever else you might just mention, or yourself, you know, but that accept the nomination. And that happens on the floor anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, I think the objective here, and you're right, there's no reason to make it self-nominations, but the objective here is people who want to express interest were the ones who would self-nominate. I think what you'd run, I can leave it, we can drop the word self, it's fine. But if I wanted you to apply for or be considered for the position, then all I need to say is call you up and say, want me to nominate you, or you want to nominate yourself? And then we know in advance that you want the job.
I mean, I just think we should, however we handle the mechanics is fine, but I don't think we should limit it to self-nominations.
Done. Self is gone.
Okay. So we should do the same thing in the next sentence, right? Take out the word self.
Board members will then have 10 working days to no. How about this instead?
How about the board chair shall notify the board of all those who have expressed interest for the vacant position within, or 10 days after such notice.
The board members will then have 10 working days, have a 10 working day window to express interest before the full board is notified of which board members have expressed interest. I have expressed interest twice. Well, I don't think I need it at all.
See, what I'm saying is let's create an affirmative duty on behalf of the board chair or the board office. I mean, where they have to notify the board of those who have expressed interest.
So you don't want to leave it as board members will then have, no. Board members will then have 10 working day window before the full board is notified of which board members have expressed interest. We want to put the chair into that?
What I'm saying is somebody has to notify the board. And we can just simplify the entire sentence by just making it as an affirmative act by the board chair.
Yeah, but this, not here. This sentence was designed to give board members those 10 days.
Understood.
So I'm trying to figure out in that, where do you want to put the active person?
Just if we scrap that sentence, we would simply exchange it with the board chair shall notify the board of all those who have expressed interest for the vacant position 10 days after such notice.
All right, I'm,
There's a sentence before you're giving, right?
the board
You're giving
chair
notice of
will,
such notice of vacancy.
I'm sorry, say that again. The board chair will.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you could just add it and then we could play with it or get rid of it. But what I'm saying is the board chair shall notify the board of all those members
who have expressed interest.
yep, for the vacant position 10 days after such notice of vacancy.
We add like approximately or no sooner than 10 days, just so it's not so rigid.
Yeah, no,
No, the objective was to give 10 days.
Well-
At the risk of complicating this, it seems like there are two concepts here that need to be clarified. One is that board members have are entitled to express interest, from the date of receipt of the notice up to and including on the date of election from the floor. That's one concept. The other concept is that the board chair will not announce any nominations for a 10-day period following the notice, but from that on that 10th day, we'll make known the nominations to date and any subsequent nominations that are made from that point up to the election. Right? I know there's a lot there, but those are the two concepts I think need to be captured. It's a lot of words, but I don't know if you all agree with me or not.
I'm a terrible
Me
typist, so you gotta hang in.
And that raised my hand. Can I speak unacknowledged? Marty, yes?
I can't do three
Okay.
things, but you're there, so yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't see any hands.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
I'm busy at
good
work.
Catholic girl, I raised my hand. There you go. Okay, so I think I think the major point for this discussion that started a meeting or two ago for me is getting lost, and I don't think it should be lost. And the entire reason for this was that if there's a premature announcement of somebody interested in the spot, it could have remember the term, chilling effect on other people, not to consider running for that spot. That's how, for me, and what I heard, how it started. So the issue is that the interest of an individual on the board not be revealed prior to 10 days after the event that creates the vacancy. That's it. Just give it just a 10-day little free spot for people to consider whether they're going to run or not. That's, for me, where this started. And that is the only thing that I think needs to be solved, but okay. So in looking at what is here, putting any burden on the board to notify the board as soon as again, when somebody resigns or dies or is kicked off the board, I've said it many times, that date is given. The board and the notice of it has nothing at all to do with the date of the vacancy. The vacancy is created in the instrument itself. And there's never been wording in the board minutes or any place. If somebody resigns, the board office said so-and-so resigned, so-and-so left, so-and-so that there's never been an issue. I mean, I don't think we need to put handcuffs on whether it be the board chair or the board office, to notify us that. It's always been done because it's not a creation of the board office, it's creation of the document itself. That is what sets the date. I've said that many times. Okay. Number two, the board members, there should be no obligation on board members. None, zero. You have 10 days to announce. You have to, no, there are no obligations, and no word should even hint at an obligation of board members that there's any time limit whatsoever for them to consider whether they'll run for that office. They could do it on day one in their own head. They could do it day 10. They could do it from the floor. There should be no obligation. I will be opposed to any obligation that even hints at a burden on a community board member for any time limit for them to make their decision. Again, I come to the point, my third point, and it's where I started. This started in order to have a free period, just a 10-day period. And I remember we talked 8 days, 7 day, 10 day, just to have a free period within which there isn't a rush to I'm running, to put a chilling effect on other people to consider. That to me is the only issue. That is it. Okay, so I hope I made some sense here, but I
You've
want
made the
no,
point.
I want no obligation on the community board or the board chair to have to, they have an obligation to tell us. It's self-fulfilling, and there's never been an issue. Let's not solve a problem that has never existed. Number two, no obligations, and any wording that even hints at an obligation of board members that they have a time period within which they need to choose. I am absolutely, totally against that. I'm only in favor of one thing, a period of time, whatever period of time, where there are no announcements of who's running. That is it. That's my one issue. And okay, I'm going to stop. Thank you.
There is no obligation in this which says you have to do it in 10 or 12 or 15 days. There's no obligation. If you want to, just know that we're not going to announce who expressed interest until that 10 days is over. There's a home free period. Dan, did I capture it in your sentence? Did I capture your thought in this sentence? And where are we going from here?
It's a good question. I don't know where we're going.
I mean, look, I guess my concern about that second sentence, Marty, is it suggests to me that that board members may only be entitled to express interest during that 10-day window. What if we just said the board chair will not notify I don't know, the board member will not notify membership of those who have expressed interest until 10 days following the effective date of the date of the notice, right? I don't know what's the triggering date. Say nothing about expressing interest, but just indicate that there's a 10-day silent period.
I'm willing to allow anyone who wishes to recast this to do so while we move on to something else.
I mean, I could take a shot at it and see if I can incorporate some of the thoughts from Paul and Rosemary there.
All right, be my guest. I just note that the last phrase is nominations may be made from the floor. it doesn't negate that possibility.
Dan, in my view, it's probably just that second sentence which needs to be tweaked.
Tuned up.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
just to take out the suggestion about 10 days to express interest and just make that the reflecting the notice obligations on the board chair, on the board.
Gotcha.
All right, so I'm gonna move to the next item while Dan is busy there. Camilla,
If you could
did I
just leave
see
this
your
on the
hand?
screen. If you could
Say
just
what?
leave it on the screen for one, if you could just leave this on the screen for one moment. Successful. Board meeting.
Can I roll?
Sure.
The next time, which we put off now for 2 months, is the question of membership on standing committee, on special committees. Do I have this right? No, this one right here, actually it's not. This one right here is to raise it and drop it. I don't know how I screwed up last month. I cannot find the the contradiction. I think the bylaws are very clear and specific. Where it says right in the middle here, section 3, a quorum is majority of appointed members. End of discussion, end of this being on the on our agenda. Any protests? The next issue became special committees, and section 5, the resolution may also provide for the composition of the committee or subcommittees, the method of selection of its chairperson, its members, its purposes, its length of existence, and any other matters concerning its operation. Any committee or subcommittee established by such a resolution may at any time be terminated by resolution of the board. Key element here is that it's the board who creates the committee, not the chairperson. Chairperson may raise the resolution or have the resolution raised in which it identifies who and why and when, but it's a resolution of the board that establishes the committee. If a resolution comes up and X, Y, and Z are named, and members of the committee, members of the board are dissatisfied with the resolution, as with any other resolution, that can be substitutions, that can be amendments to, and the litany and so on. So basically, I don't think anything has to be changed here. Camelia raised it. I will call upon her now because I think what exists solved the problem before there was a problem. Camelia?
Yes, I would just explain how this came about because it was a sort of a practical experience matter. Because my question was originally, how can new board members, newly appointed board members, join any special committee? Because they're simply, how to say, if the resolution for extension of a special committee was passed in June and new board members come on in September, they never have that opportunity. And I came across this because the beginning of this year, I asked if I could be part of the special committee on the green, I'm missing the Greenway, I'm missing the name right now, with Bob Bender and Laura and Dan. So, and I was told no, because that's being done by resolution when it was formed, it was formed, but there's never an opportunity for members to join. And the committee, for example, didn't change composition in 6 years, So why wouldn't a member that expresses an interest, not be able to join? And then, I mean, Martin, I had to say what you just said also just contradicted my experience, because our chair, I'm grateful to her, to Laura, because she just appointed me to the special committee on racial equity. So it was not the board, it was the chair.
I'm sorry.
But
sorry,
then
Camelia.
I'm finishing.
No,
in a
I
second.
just a point of information. Did you say you were just appointed to a special committee?
That's correct.
By Laura, yes.
Yes.
So then let me just finish.
We
one
need to
second.
deal with that. I apologize.
No, Dan, but that's exactly why I raised, because there's all this contradictory information. And I mean, I'm sorry to point my third point here. Sometimes it became a sort of a dangerous pattern for the community board to adopt unwritten resolution. Dear sirs, I mean, last June, Community Board 8 adopted 6 unwritten resolutions, 4 from land use and 2 the special committees. So it's very hard to argue what was in a resolution that was not written, or what was not, or whose name was in a resolution that was not written. So sort of the accumulation of these observations kind of led me to ask a formal question. Can you please clarify composition and membership of special committees, whether it's chair discretion or, subsequent extensions of resolutions that at the end of the year are submitted to full board. So as you can see, I have a right and reasons to be slightly confused.
Okay, right.
Do I hear another voice?
I got my hand
Um,
raised. Okay, can I just go,
Okay,
Marty, or
I'm not-
whatever, whoever you want to call on?
Because I'm sharing screen, I'm not seeing raised hands.
Oh,
yes.
okay. Oh, my goodness. Okay, there you go. I can see
Everyone-
them. Okay, so I'll lower my hand because it doesn't matter. Okay, it is, I hate to use this term, crystal clear. The bylaws are crystal clear. Special committees are formed, and their elements and every aspect of them are formed by resolution. It is clear. The chair of the board has no role in that other than what all of us do as members of the board to put forward a resolution in front of the full board. It is the full board that creates the special committee. It is the full board that adopts. It is the full board that adopt the rules, that will adopt the mission of the special committee. That is it. So I don't want to piggyback on Dan here, but to the extent that people were added to a committee without a board resolution, or chairs were picked without a board resolution, Marty, that is for you to sort out, because the bylaws are clear. There is no authority of anybody to do anything without a board resolution.
I shall inform Laura.
So, Marty, if I may, that appointment is basically void. And Camelia, that has nothing to do with you, but process-wise, that never should have happened.
No, absolutely. That's why I'm asking for clarification, because again, Rosemary's point, I take it is super clear. At formation, there is a resolution. The problem is that there are no consequent steps. And when there is a written resolution extending a special committee, clear,
Yeah.
but there was none for the two special committees.
Camelia, go
Camelia.
put a resolution in front of the board to put you on a special committee.
I don't
and
want
let the
that.
board vote on it. That's what it is.
Rosemary,
Yeah.
I'm not
Do it.
arguing for me.
No. Okay.
I'm arguing
So-
for process clarity.
Camelia?
It's clear.
Yeah.
Read the bylaws. It's crystal clear. Okay. I'm done.
All right,
So
so
Camelia,
I
just
need to-
process-wise, oh, I'm sorry, Marty, go ahead. Yep, sorry.
I need to discuss with Laura that a resolution needs to be amended so that people can be added or, I mean, there's been a problem with this committee, obviously. Was it on its fourth chairman now in a year and a half? It's just sad. This committee eats up people. It's not good. It's got an important purpose and it keeps eating up people.
But the same question remains for the Greenway too. How can new members join the committee? Who rejects them? Let's put it this way.
But put a resolution in front of the board and have the board vote you on or not vote you on. What is not clear, Camelia?
That
It's
in June,
right
there was
there.
no written resolution, Rosemary, on
You
both committees.
do it.
Yeah, I mean, Camelia, you can make a
do it.
resolution.
Go
I mean,
ahead, put
I
it.
think- I mean,
I'm
look,
passing,
we're
I'm
not-
putting a
we're
resolution,
not
put myself on the
disagreeing
committee and
that
have it voted.
there's an issue in terms of process.
Yes,
And but I think the answer is clear. You can present a resolution before the board. That's it. I mean,
s- to submit myself as a candidate to join the Greenway.
Do it.
Well, when the resolution comes up at the end of the year, the resolution needs to be amended to include you, and I think there was somebody else she put on the committee.
Yes, there are two people, yes.
And again, it's a dangerous committee. You never know what's gonna happen to the people who are on it.
That's why I wanted to join the Greenway. But I was rejected from that one too, because there was never an opportunity to
That's
join
a
it.
that's a
But no,
safer
no.
committee.
Point of
So
information
was I at
there.
inception.
Point of information there. So
Dan?
Camelia, there is an opportunity, and there's an opportunity for every member to become a part of a special committee. And it's done so by putting forward a resolution to the board. And the board either is going to vote yes or vote no.
And that resolution should come from the committee or from the member?
No, it can come from anyone. It can come from any individual member of the committee or come from an individual board member. When you look at the bylaws, it does not state that it must be one particular person.
Yeah, but
So
the
if you
by-
want to make a resolution at the next board meeting, you can do so, and the board will vote on it.
Okay,
at this
without
point-
approval from the Greenway committee, without, just, I'm a board member, I want to join such committee, can I? That's
It
a
might be,
resolution.
it might be a smart thing to do to contact the committee members and say, I'm interested in doing this. But that's a whole other story.
Right, but I mean, the original point remains, which is new members cannot join special committees.
oh,
Correct.
Camelia, what,
It's not,
we're, the bylaws, we keep saying the bylaws are clear.
they're clear.
Any member can be appointed can be appointed to a board to a committee by resolution.
Exactly.
A new
Okay.
member, their first meeting, they can present a resolution to be appointed to a committee, and if that resolution is adopted, they're on.
Okay, good,
Okay.
clear then. So it's to the board, not to the chair.
In September, there was a resolution, there were two resolutions to extend the life of both of those committees. The issue here is, at that time or next September, for anybody else, I wish to be on the committee, means I offer amendment to the resolution, which will probably be denied, and then you challenge the chair and it's voted on. It's the ownership of the resolution is the board.
That's
Not to
right.
make-
Exactly, Marty, exactly.
Okay, but then it remains, let the resolution be written.
Go write it. Go ahead, do it.
Sure, but the same with this, with the committees, they should write their own extension resolutions versus referring now to a resolution that was not
Okay,
actually
and this
written.
is, we're going on and on. The bylaws
Okay,
are
I'm-
clear. The bylaws are clear. It's by resolution, the board, come up with a resolution, put it before the board, and the vote will be taken. Okay, I'm repeating myself. It's clear, Camelia, it's clear. The bylaws are crystal clear.
I
Well,
need to
Thanks for
advise,
clarifying.
I need to advise Laura now that she needs, without 24 hours notice, she needs to raise a resolution to amend the resolution which defines the membership of that committee. And it has to be approved by the board. And your subject is now closed. Moving on. What I thought would take the most time, and I hope it's reasonable, under the open meetings law, and I quote here from, I quote here from Advisory Opinion 5607. To put the issue in perspective, open meetings law gives the public the right to attend, listen, and observe the performance of public officials during meetings of public bodies. That statute, however, is silent with respect to public participation. If a public body does not want the public to speak during its meeting, a policy or rule to that effect would be valid. Many public bodies, however, permit limited public participation, and when they do so, this office has advised that the rules should be adopted and any such rules be reasonable. And I underlined here, treat members of the public equally. We do not have consistent rules across the board. And the purpose of this discussion now is to see what we want to come up with. I don't plan to have an answer for us tonight, but I want to raise these issues for our discussion. Now, I will use the land use meeting as an example. Because, well, first of all, I've spoken with Chuck and I 100% believe he did a fantastic job. Not a very easy situation, but you had two competing interests. The interest of the board in learning some very important issues about land use in general, nepotism and whatever else he brought up, and the separate issue, and Omar is here now, the separate issue of whether or not to give free rein to Ms. Drinkwater to say what and when, whenever she wanted to. Every time Chuck asked a direct question, she was obfuscating. She kept, it's a word I can't pronounce. She kept going back to her script and would not respond to Chuck's question. And on that note, I wanted to tell you that for the 5:30 on, I was watching Senator Biaggi had a public meeting in which the sole topic was her full support of the homeless shelter. Wonderful idea, everything is fantastic. And the issue came up about the RFP, and they got away with, they would not have gotten away with this with Chuck, but they merely said we had a panel of experts and they went through the RFP and they just thought it was great. I remember Chuck was hammering away, who was on this committee? How did they get selected? What was the process? Drinkwater would not respond to any of those. But the problem that Chuck seemed to have had, and I discussed with him, was that he was getting mixed messages of whether or not this was he was conducting a committee meeting of committee members or a public meeting to allow the public full opportunity to speak. And so he was trying to do both. I don't think he did well on that in particular, but the fact is, he should have announced, or any one of us at any one of our committees should announce, these are the rules for public participation. And so I raised these just to give you food for thought. And so I wrote this out and you can disagree. And again, I expect nothing to be resolved tonight. Based on anticipated conditions, chair may choose to deny input from non-committee members, which often happens. Allow input, set limits, such as notifying guests that they may speak only once, unless time permits. Required a limited number of pre-meeting speaker slots. If speakers are allowed and prior rules are not announced and imposed, chair may have to allow all speakers an opportunity. And then for use of a pre-signed sheet, the problem I'm having now is that I should have, when Dan walked in, given him the chair, the co-host chair, so he could welcome people in and advise me if hands were raised, because I'm focused on my screen and I don't see all your charming faces. Second issue comes up of what does the meeting look like? And I'm suggesting for thought that the meeting ought to have, I put out here 5 different components. First, beginning with a meeting and agenda item, then presentations, if someone is here to say, DHS or whomever, this is what we're doing, and lay out what the problem is. And then we allow elected officials. My concern has always been that some elected officials take the floor and believe they have full license to go on forever. And then allow for board members to do fact finding, and then allow for testimony for community input. Anything they want to bring up, which is relevant and to the point. And then I love that Chuck always says at some point, when there are still people who want to speak, does anyone have additional testimony that has not already been expressed? And then after we have all this input, then the board members can discuss among themselves and take a position. Interesting, we're going back to the item I had earlier about anonymity. There is no privacy interest. You may remain anonymous, but anything you say, and I took this from OML, anything you say is in the public, and no one's going to edit out what you said. And if it's distasteful or embarrassing, the person who said it is stuck with it. And there's no basis for prohibiting or limiting photographing, recording, or broadcasting. And then there are some rules for broadcasting, which I don't think we have to spend time on because it hasn't been an issue for us. If it becomes an issue, then we can tell people you can take your pictures, but you can't stand here in front of people to block their vision. We may decide, but I don't think that's an issue. So I bring this up to you and throw it open for anyone who has thoughts. And I will open up my screen so I can see people. Camilla, I'm going to ask for the committee first. Anybody? Somebody? Camilla.
Yes, you sort of answered when you said I will ask committee members first, because this was exactly my my question to you, whether committee members are having the right to engage in questions along the lines of the order you clearly listed prior to the to regular community attendance, which I do agree with the assessment that the meeting of the land use the last meeting was kind of a mix of a town hall committee meeting, and I understand, of course, the heightened interest of the community to participate. However, I did have some difficulties in raising my hand and being acknowledged and allowed to ask a question, which was what I reported. I also had to insist in the city official being allowed to answer my questions versus the committee chair wanting to answer my question, and I did find significant information that she provided. So, but just wanted to acknowledge this, that it's kind of recognized protocol to proceed with the order you listed, Marty, with committee members being allowed to ask questions as they are committee members at committee meetings prior to community members. Also, just let me point out about land use, a certain community member was allowed to ask questions multiple times in 2 different rounds, and there were like 150 people in the meeting. So anyway, just wanted to say thank you for listing it as it is, because it does confirm my perception of process.
All right, but we do not have rules, and I think we should establish them. And Chuck was under pressure, as he expressed to me, to allow as many community members to speak, and therefore he didn't choose as many committee members or community members as he would have liked to. On the other hand, I want to go back to my interpretation that allowing the DHS to obfuscate, hope I got it right this time, was not what Chuck was going to allow them to do. So if the discussion was the discussion that Omar held at his committee, tell us about the program, what's going on, who's going to be there, why is it here? That's the kind of questions that Chuck didn't want to lead, to give them more and more time to kill time. They wanted to talk about that. We didn't. We had other things to discuss. Anybody else?
And Marty, without going to, I don't want to address all that you put up very well, thank you, but I do want to say that the chair of a committee runs the committee, and the chair of committee has to run in very difficult circumstances, sometimes very difficult hearings. And I do not appreciate criticism of chairs of committees who run extremely difficult hearings to be criticized that they didn't do this or that or the other thing. We vote for the chairs of our committees. We vote intentionally because they are qualified to run committee hearings, and many times they're difficult. So we're not perfect. But I stand behind the committee chairs, and especially the land use committee chair, for running what is traditionally some of the most difficult hearings this board has. Thank you.
I will admit many times, I'm not an attorney. I have no legal background, but I was in awe of how well, I mean, I saw an attorney at work, not allowing the witness to walk away with the time. He was nailing that witness down. I was impressed.
So just a quick question. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead.
Okay, no, just, you know, when you do open the doors, you know, for the public in a regular meeting, not an official hearing, but, you know, for the public to comment or to ask questions, which is a good thing depending on the committee. You know, when we were in person, we had to be very sensitive to the host location, not to outstay our welcome. And I know, you know, and yet when you have, let's say, 6 people of the public and the 7th, there's really no time, you have to leave because it's a nursing home and people have to go to sleep and the cleaning people maintenance needs to go home. We have to sometimes set limits, you know, on the number or the time dedicated to public comment. So I don't know that there can be a rule in terms of you have to let everyone talk and for as long as they want. There has to be some limits, and that's all I'm saying. And we stopped being able to use some locations because we went on too late because we wanted to give the public a chance to speak, but it's not fair to the hosting site. Anyway, that's it.
I'm sure I've shared this before, but way back when the Pattern law before the Pattern law came out, and the first group home was being considered for North Riverdale. And I conducted the meeting at St. Margaret's. Sorry, not St. Margaret's, at Mount St. Vincent. There was an unruly crowd. And there were epithets being thrown, and the crowd, they were angry, and they have a right to be angry, but they took it out on me. And I look at the meeting that Omar conducted and the meeting that Chuck conducted, and to me, it's almost too antiseptic. Everybody's the other side of the screen. You don't have to deal with their anger, just their comments. So I see a great change, which I think Zoom has helped. Anybody else?
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
I've chaired my share of unruly meetings that have gone very, very late. And look, I appreciate that we have to kind of go with what we come up with, but you know, let's take a different approach to this issue. And the different approach to this issue is You know, there are times when sometimes we inhibit speech or prohibit speech or don't allow folks to speak on certain topics, maybe because somebody doesn't want to hear a specific viewpoint brought out. And I think that's what we need to be careful of here. You know, in reading some of the opinions out there, you know, the rule that's consistent is that the public must be treated equally. So I'll throw a difficult question out there for you, which is this. Can you, Marty, I've asked you this once before, and you know, it's kind of like one of those things like, I don't know. And it's, you know, can you allow the public to speak on one topic in a meeting and then turn around at the next topic and not allow the public to speak within the same agenda? Is the public being treated equally at that point for being able to speak on one topic, but not being able to speak on another topic? You know, that I think is an interesting question to think about. Another thing is with time limits. You know, it's kind of written here, and we're talking about in terms of the chair setting limits. But I don't necessarily know that it's the chair that sets the limit, just like it's not the chair that sets an agenda. It's really the committee that does it. You know, we kind of overlook it in many circumstances, but do you come out into a meeting and say, in a Zoom meeting, and let me put it in a Zoom meeting, you know, we're going to end this meeting at 8 p.m. tonight at the very beginning without, you know, hearing anything? You know, is that reasonable, so to speak, to the public? You know, given what's on the agenda, who the heck knows, right? But is it the chair that's going to do that? Or is it going to be the committee that votes to say, okay, yes, we're going to end the meeting at 8 p.m. tonight? And I think that's a question that we need to look at. And the other thing, and we're not going to solve this tonight, I know that, but when you're in the middle of a topic and you're full on discussion, the community has a lot more to say, committee members have a lot more to say, are you ending the topic discussion? Or are you saying, well, we need to adjourn this topic because, you know, the Riverdale Y needs to close its doors and we have to get out of here? You know, and I guess that comes down to the committee. The committee's really got to decide that. And, you know, I throw it out for discussion or anything else. It's my worry. The thing I care about is the public coming back and saying, I didn't have an opportunity to speak. I didn't have an opportunity to get my opinion out, because quite frankly, you know, that's what we're here for. And I throw those concepts out there. And it has, and everything I'm saying right now has absolutely nothing to do with Chuck Merdler. I think he did a phenomenal job in very difficult meetings. I just say these are points that we should discuss and at least, yeah, I don't know, just put it out there for debate.
Anybody else?
That, Marty, I will, I agree with Dan. Sometimes we forget what we're about. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes I forget what I'm about on the community board, okay? I've been here 13 years and sometimes I even forget it. And I'm reminded, I remind myself, we are here for the community. We're here to be the bridge between them and government. We have to listen to them. We have to figure out a way how we can have hearings where they can speak. It is why we exist. So that once again, I'm not addressing what's on the screen, but I will agree with that aspect of what Dan said. If we're not about listening to the community, what the hell are we about?
So Marty, I would,
Thank you.
my question would be, there's no question that this is an important topic, but as more than one person has stated, there isn't going to be an one size fits all solution, right? Depends on the meeting, depends on the topic, depends on the number of speakers there, depends on the venue. And so I guess I'm sort of curious if you have thoughts on process. How do we go about this? I mean, do you want us to take this list and think about it and discuss it at a future meeting? I mean, I'm just curious what your thoughts are in terms of how we move this forward, because it's important. There's a lot here, and I'm sort of thinking a bit about the framework, frankly.
Well, the answer to your last question is yes. I'd like you to take it back, think about it, and we'll discuss it again. How we implement it or how it gets implemented, you're 100% right. Different chairs have different styles and techniques. However, everyone should have every committee should have a set of rules and be prepared to share that at the beginning of a meeting, so that everyone knows what the ground rules are. And I leave it at that.
It seems it might be, that there might be a reason to have, I mean, I'm trying to think of how to make this satisfy the goal of having as broad public input as possible, but making it sort of user-friendly for the chairs. And perhaps there are 2 or 3 different sets of rules, and that the chairs could choose to adopt at the beginning of one of their meetings, depending on the nature of the meeting. A meeting like this would dictate a different set of rules than the land use committee meeting of last week. And generally one has a pretty good idea before the meeting or at the start of the meeting what the mood is going to be like and how many people are in the room. And I mean, so maybe it's several alternative sets of rules that the chairs can adopt as they deem appropriate.
I agree. And I think we are in a position to lay out what the parameters of those rules might be, and then let chairs choose. But again, they need to have it rules so they can announce it as the meeting begins. Right now, I don't think that's the case. It's whatever happens, happens. And not only don't the community know what the rules are, but very often the chair doesn't. And we should clarify that. David?
Yes, I think that we need to be able to establish boundaries, but I think that the chairs need the discretion to decide on a case-by-case basis, particularly depending on the nature of the discussion and how likely, in the chair's opinion, it's going to, encourage or invite, 4 people to show up or 174 people to show up. I think the key thing is that the chair should have boundaries that they announce at the beginning of the meeting. I'm sorry, that they make an announcement of the rules of the meeting at the beginning of the meeting, but those rules must fit within the boundaries.
Fully agree. I
Okay.
just want to make sure that chairs have thought about what the rules might be.
Well, maybe we should help them with a list of boundaries.
That's what I wanted to do here.
Okay,
And I ask you to stay awake all night tonight and ponder this. If you can't do it tonight, then we don't meet until January 10th.
well, what does Roberts tell us?
He said January 13th, but I didn't care.
Okay,
No, as I started here, the premise comes right out of meetings law.
okay,
And as Dan has indicated several times, treat the members of the public equally. And so we need to define what equally means. Does it mean every question on the agenda? Does it mean only select questions on the agenda? I don't know.
well, I think the chair can use his discretion there, her discretion there as well, because, to say you can't change it from topic to topic means that you couldn't change it if that topic showed up next month rather than this month.
I leave that for you to ponder till January 12th.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, I have 2 minor items to clean up on, and then I'm going to go back to Dan in his prose. I have not received anything from the Conflict of Interest Board to share with you, so I won't share any. As far as the spreadsheet, I didn't prepare one, And I want to thank Rosemary for not convincing me, but to give me a heads up. Next month is the last month of the current legislative session. Whatever comes up in the next minute or day or few, whatever, will be gone on January 1st. The calendar is totally cleared and they start from the beginning, which will
Mhm.
make my life easier making those spreadsheets. So I punked out and didn't waste my time on the new calendar. But I thought it was important to note, and I can't believe anyone here wouldn't, but the city council voted and passed a resolution to extend voting rights to non-citizens. Where that ends up, I have no idea, but I found it fascinating that they guesstimated they're talking about 800,000 people. And from what I've read and seen, we're talking about there must be at least a 30-day residence prior to the vote. People who have green cards or DACA. I just thought I'd raise it because if you haven't noticed this, you've already been asleep.
Yeah, Marty,
Good news.
State Board of Elections issues notwithstanding, wasn't it actually a law, not a resolution?
No, this is the law. They passed it. The city
Okay, you
passed it.
said a resolution.
I'm sorry. It was passed. This past
Yes,
week, it was
yes.
passed. And I can't, if I didn't do the spreadsheet, if I didn't mention this, I'd be totally remiss.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share something. So next meeting, January 10th. I think I misstated that earlier, the 10th. Okay, so we're back here. Dan?
Yeah, trying to piece some stuff in. All right, so this is just concepts. We can pick it apart. Shit, sorry. Where are we? Zoom. Do you want to hit share screen, Marty, or make me co-host, whichever one? Doesn't matter.
Okay, let me see how I do this. Stop share. Okay, Dan Moore, make co-host. Yes. And you're now co-host.
Great. Let me just make sure.
You doubt me?
Zoom. No, no, oh, no. Make sure I have the thing that I wanted. Share screen. All right, so let me just get here. I'm sorry. Where is my stop share? Give me 1 second. Let me just get this together. There we go. I'm sorry, working on a laptop. Should be good.
So while you're doing that, I'll take attendance. Dan is here, Rosemary's here, Kelly is here. Just messed up my screen. Paul is here. Rosemary, Kelly, so there is Sylvia. Omar. David. Okay.
I also see Steve Fruit on the screen, Marty.
Yeah,
Do you see that?
I had seen Steve. I don't see him. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Lisa,
okay.
I don't know if you mentioned me.
I
I
mentioned you,
think
Sylvia.
so.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is what I have. The first two sentences are basically from the bylaws. It's the exact language from the bylaws. Upon the death, resignation, term of board membership, or removal of any officer or elected chair, vacancy created shall be filled by the board. The election to fill any vacancy shall take place upon written notice, not later than the second regular meeting following the creation of the vacancy. Straight from the bylaws, didn't touch it. The next is what we can now play with. And obviously open to everything. The board chair shall notify the board as soon as practicable after learning of such vacancy in order to prevent a chilling effect for those interested in running for the position while maintaining transparency. The names of those who have expressed interest in running for such vacancy will not be made public less than 10 days and not more than 14 days after the vacancy is either created or transmitted, whatever you guys think. And again, I put the range, just giving Lisa's concern. We could, again, play with all of it. And then the very end, nominations may be submitted at any time up to the time of the election to fill such vacancy. Nominations may be made from the floor at the time of such election. And I leave it open for everyone.
Dan, could you go back to the top, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Actually, technically, you're saying we would fill any board position.
I'm
As
sorry,
well.
where is that?
Upon the death, resignation, or of any officer, elected committee chairperson, the vacancy created. The vacancy could be the resignation from the board.
Yeah,
We don't fill board positions.
this is from the bylaws, David.
It's the bylaws.
Okay, fine, it's wrong.
Okay,
I'm not reading what you think you're reading, David. Upon death, resignation, termination of board membership, okay, or removal of any officer or elected committee, vacancy created shall be filled by the board. That's correct.
Death, resignation, termination of board membership creates a vacancy.
Oh,
We
okay.
don't have to deal with that tonight, but it should be dealt with.
David
I'm
is-
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't, I should raise my hand.
okay, I just want to jump in and give an alternate view of the world here. This is, again, I think it's a simple issue that we were beginning to address. And the simplest way it can be dealt with, I believe, is the right way to do it, to do a gingerly effect in what we're trying to do, or what I think we're trying to do. So therefore, with all due respect to all of the language here, I would suggest in the ethical guidance manual, a simple statement that says the following: upon a vacancy by virtue of resignation, death, or termination, any community board member who is interested in running for the position, which vote will be taken no later than the second community board meeting after the date of the vacancy, will not be made public by the community board before 10 days after the vacancy. That, to me, deals with the issue that I understood we were dealing with. And it does nothing other than that. Okay, that I can repeat. It's a simple sentence. Let me do it one more time and then I'll shut up, I promise you. Okay, in the ethical guidance manual, upon a vacancy by virtue of resignation, death, or termination, any community board member who is interested in running for the position, which vote will be taken no later than the second meeting after the date of the vacancy, will not be made public by the community board before 10 days after the vacancy. That, to me, is the issue. And is somebody typing? I'm sorry.
Okay.
So that's what I put in. I'm sorry to complicate things at this later hour. I hope I'm not complicating them. I'm trying to simplify them.
I think we're missing something. Based on what you're thinking, will not be made public before 10 days. What will not be made public? That's what's missing.
It's fine. Will not be any member who's interested in running, their name will not be made public. Their interest will not be made public any community board is interested in running for the position. Any member who's not in, that's not English, but any member who's interested in running for the position, then we have to back up on the interest of any community board member. The interest of any community board member in running for the position will not be made public. You see, you go up, upon a vacancy by virtue of death, resignation, death, or termination, the interest of any community board member, okay? I see it right here. No, you go, smooch over, smooch down. You see after termination, the comma?
Mhm.
Okay, the interest of any community board member, the interest, okay, get rid of the interest in running for the position, gets rid of who is interested. Okay, the interest of any community board member in running for the position, which vote will not be taken later than, okay. Okay, get rid of, get after the comma, after vacancy, get rid of everything up to will, okay? Will not be made, there you go. Now, does it read, upon a vacancy by virtue of death, resignation, oh, you have two people dying at the same time.
one
Whether
person
death,
dying twice.
resignation, or termination, get rid of two deaths. We don't need death, okay. Upon a vacancy by virtue of death, resignation, or termination, the interest of any community board member in running for the position, which vote will not be taken later than the second regular meeting following the creation of the vacancy, will not be made public before 10 days after such vacancy. Okay, there you go. I'm done. Thank you. Who is doing that magic? God, it really is magic.
I think it's Dan.
Okay, Dan. Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Dan,
That's my input. That's it. And I'm done. Sorry.
Dan, that first paragraph still makes sense. I think it's being read wrong by David. Upon death, resignation, termination of board membership, or removal of any officer. These are conditions for removal. The vacancy we created filled by the board. It doesn't say it's going to replace board members.
Correct.
Actually, it does. What you can do then simply say is in that third line, the leadership position, leadership position vacancy.
I don't know what you're talking about, David.
Leadership being a chair.
I don't know where you are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
where-
Excuse me. Third line.
What do you mean third line? Are you talking in the first paragraph?
Yes.
Okay, first paragraph are the board bylaws. I'm not touching those. And if you guys would like to make a bylaws change, by all means.
All right, fine.
You can
Then
start the
let's do it in
process.
the second paragraph.
So this was Rosemary's, and the only thing I just did was, add, the vacant of who the vacancy was.
Yeah, okay. Just give me a minute here. In the third line in the second paragraph. Interest of any CB member in running for the vacated leadership position.
You don't need it. Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
think you
fine.
need it.
All right, I'm done. I'm done. Never mind.
I think we're paying by the vowel and don't need to add that.
So pure bylaws, I'm not touching bylaws. Sorry.
All right, so I think, well, I try not to think, but I'm not gonna move this until I bring it before the
Well,
executive committee
okay,
next
so
month. So if anyone
so
has
we're-
any, I will put this out. I'm asked Dan to email it to me. I'll put this out to the board, to the committee, and then I plan to raise it at the next executive board meeting.
okay, just so we're clear, we're getting rid of everything down below, right? Is that correct, Marty? The only thing we have is one paragraph?
Well, it's 2 paragraphs with the piece from the bylaws.
Well, let's say we forget, do you want the bylaws part in there still?
No,
Or
I
no?
think, I don't think we need it.
Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of the bylaws. Now we have one paragraph here, right?
Right.
So. So no notice, we're not gonna talk about notice and we're not, right? And we're not talking about nominations from the floor?
You know this.
That should be in there. To eliminate any confusion.
I'm gonna pull up the bylaws if I can really quickly, because I don't remember, maybe Rosemary or Paul, do you remember in the bylaws whether or not? And again, I don't recall. Let me see if I can
remember
pull it up
what?
right now.
What
The nominations from the floor.
You know, Dan, it's a good question, but the thing is, we've been on the board for so many years. We know that that's a
Yep.
possibility. Okay, so I'm not sure where we got that from, the bylaws or tradition or what have you. I think it probably is in the bylaws, but what section?
Yeah, are you guys seeing this share right now or no? Of the
Yes.
bylaws?
We are seeing it.
No,
Of the
Excellent.
bylaws, no.
The
all I
bylaws,
see
all
is
right.
my paragraph. All I see is. the
Understood. I'm
paragraph
gonna pull up the bylaws so you guys have it in front of you.
Mhm.
Stop share, stop
Alright.
share. Share screen and bylaws.
I just said,
Sure.
I just come from the school. You don't need to repeat what already exists.
Yep.
That's just the
Agreed.
school I come from. That's it. What are you pointing us to, Dan?
This is section 2 and section 3 of the bylaws under Article 5.
But,
So Article 3 is dealing with where we just were. The election procedure shall be the same as set forth in section 2 of this Article 5, except that no nominating committee shall be elected,
right.
and all candidates shall be nominated from the floor. So the bylaws contain nominated from the floor. So we're okay. The bylaws say all nominations from the floor.
From the floor, and why this came up is because of the potential chilling effect of people considering running for a position. I go back to the potential, and this wasn't my issue, but I agree with it, that there is a real and a potential chilling effect on day 1 or day 2, throwing a name out and somebody saying, oh my God, they're more senior to me on the community board. I was thinking of running, but I'm not going to run because, oh my God. Okay, that's not a great thing. I thought that's what we were trying to address. And so, okay, the ethical guidance manual and okay, I have to shut up. I'm sorry.
All right, so
That's-
Dan, if, Dan,
I would just like to apologize to everybody for resigning from secretary and
I think
In oh so many ways.
I think that sentence there about nominations, all nominations coming from the floor should remain. It's in 2 separate documents. It's not repetitive here. So that one sentence is fine. All nominations,
Nominations may, which sentence, Marty?
the very
We're
last
getting
one.
rid of. Okay, and we're getting rid of the board chair shall notify the board as soon as practicable after learning of
Yes.
such vacancy.
Yes. Leave it right there. Fine.
That's the cherry on the top of the sundae. That always exists. And Marty, you're right. It deserves to be repeated again and again and again. Its nominations can be submitted up to the, yes.
Okay, so Dan, would you please email that to me?
Yep, you got it.
And I will send it out to the committee.
Okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I wish everyone a merry, happy, and a joyous.
Thank
where
you.
You fill in the line.
Christmas, Merry Christmas. Yes,
Merry
that's
Merry
good.
Christmas,
Yes.
Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa.
Mhm.
I'd say Happy Hanukkah, but it's too late.
Yep. It was very early this year, right? Very early, right?
That's the
Mhm.
complaint we have every year. It comes early, it comes
Yep.
late. The rabbis say it comes when it's supposed to come.
That's exactly right. You're right.
That's the problem when you have two competing calendars.
Very good.
Anyhow, thank you all. Last note, again, the condolences to Kelly, and I welcome her back.
Thank you very
And,
much, Marty. Much appreciated.
So everyone, take care and enjoy the rest of the evening and ponder the rules.
Bye,
Take
folks.
care
Thank you
all.
very much,
Take
Marty.
care.
Good
Have a
night,
good
everyone.
Thanks, Marty.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Right.